Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Jewish Book Village, where Jewish authors meet their readers and we grow and learn from each other. So today we are speaking with Rebecca Rubin Seligson.
Yes.
Rebecca is the founder of Wheellustrated Tales, an initiative designed to normalize disabilities in children's literature. Hey, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us
Hey,
today.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So, Rebecca is the author of a children's series called The Adventures of Incredi-Wheels and Triple S. And I have a copy of it right here. This is the second book called The Lemonade League. And Rebecca has actually authored two children's books. The first one is The Mysterious Missing Book, and the second one is The Lemonade League. So Rebecca holds degrees in early childhood education from Yeshiva University, and she has an MA in literacy from Teachers College at Columbia University. And she also has experience teaching English as a second language. So I am so happy that you're here with us today and excited to talk with you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk and to share and to just help bring out some more disability inclusion and normalization out there. So thank you.
Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about your background. Tell me about
Sure.
yourself. Where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from New York, went to Stern, Yeshiva University. I got my bachelor's to be early childhood teacher. I'm actually now working as a preschool teacher. I haven't updated my bio since. It's been a while, but I've been working as a preschool teacher. And I have my master's to be a literacy specialist from Columbia University. So I have training in building literacy curriculum, early childhood. It's from K through grade 6. So assessing literacy curriculum, teaching reading and writing. And we moved to Israel in 2014, right after I finished my master's. Did a 2.5 year program in under 1 year so we could book it as
Oh,
fast as
wow.
possible. Yeah, I didn't see the light of day for a year. Me and the library were best friends. But yeah, so
And
now we're here in
where do
Israel.
you live in Israel?
We are in Modi'in, so smack in between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv,
Oh, wonderful.
accessible to both.
So tell me a little bit about your writing. When did you start getting into writing?
So it's very funny. I've always been interested in writing. It was never my dream to be a writer. I've always loved writing. I actually had an essay that was sent to President Bush in 5th grade. But I've always loved writing. I've loved books more and reading books more. And that, like I said before, like it was never my dream to become a writer. It kind of just happened to fulfill a need that I felt was needed. I have a son who was born with cerebral palsy, and I noticed a severe lack in disability representation in kids' books. And because I'm a literacy specialist, one of the big things I do is evaluate kids' books for what's quality kid lit. And I noticed it was missing. So I'm like, I gotta fix this. Gotta fix this. A lot of people, when my son was diagnosed, said to me, "Oh, you should write a book, you should write a blog, you should write stories." I'm like, I don't know. Like, I didn't feel like an authority figure enough to like write on stuff like that. I'm just like, I'm dealing with it myself. I'm not interested in kind of speaking for others at this point. But then as he got older and I was looking for books to buy him, I'm like, I don't see any. Like, he's not going to see himself in any of the books that he's reading. I'm like, this is a problem.
How
And I
old was your
also,
son at that time?
so I mean, he was diagnosed when he was 1. There were a whole, like, we knew beforehand, but the official diagnosis was at age 1. And because I'm a literacy specialist, like I had children's books in my house before I had kids. So I already like knew what I wanted to stock my house with. And I'm like, and I noticed between my own professional search and just looking through Amazon and Barnes and Noble and regular bookstores that there really was a severe lack in representation. There were a lot of books I noticed that were educational, a little bit more nonfiction, but I'm like, I want a storybook that I can read with him in bed at night. Like when I like there is a market for kids who do like the nonfiction and that's their snuggle up and read book, but like most kids want like a fun action story, something fun, something chill. And I'm like, there's none of that. Or very little of that. Very little. And I also realized that I know how important like kids literature is in terms of disability inclusion,
So
just
what do you
because
mean by that?
by that I mean, I was just going into that, was that kids learn a lot from the books they read, right? That's just how kids learn about the world. They learn about it through experiencing the world, and they learn about it through books. And I knew that kids, originally it started off as just a focus for our community. I'm like, kids are going to come across my son in shul or in the community, and they're going to see him. They're like, who's this kid in a wheelchair? Like, and he's going to be defined by his disability. I'm like, I don't want that. I want kids to know what disability is beforehand. So that way when they meet him, they meet my son, they meet the kid, not the wheelchair.
Hmm.
So like I said, at first I started off keeping this very community centric. And then people were like, well, you're spending money on it anyway, so you might as well do something with it. So it's like, okay, let's do something with it. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's push it out. Let's try to get it out there. And if it can help my son, I hope it helps other kids too. And so that's where we started from.
Meaning, when you say that it was community centric, do you
I
mean that you
planned on
started
printing out a
writing the
book and
book for the
spiralizing
community?
it and just giving it out to our community. Like, I really didn't plan on doing anything with it. Really.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
then people pointed out that there was a need for it. I'm like, well, they're right.
yeah,
And I
definitely.
noticed it, and I'm like, okay, let's go for it. Let's change it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that there was such a lack of books that represented kids with disabilities, because it seems
Yeah.
like there's a tremendous body of works out there, about disabilities. So can you talk more a little bit
So
about that?
sure, absolutely. So it's funny because I just gave a talk to my daughter's first grade class about disability inclusion and stuff like that. And the first thing I did was I went to our local bookstore to see if I could find any picture books with disability representation, and there were none. So I don't know whether that's an Israeli fault or whatever it is, but regardless, you walk into a store in the mall and there's no picture books with disability representation, like that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as of late, there has been a push to create more in the world of inclusion, the world of acceptance. There has been a bigger push for it, but it's still not mainstream. It's still not like the fact that we need to have discussions about disability inclusion means that it's not a thing yet.
Mhm.
So, I think the biggest thing that will contribute to that is early childhood knowledge of disabilities, because it kind of pulls away from that like taboo almost. And by introducing kids young to disabilities and the world of disabilities, it kind of pulls that back. And we need more books. so,
I'm in
so we need
favor of
more
that.
books. We need more books. We need more. And like I said, we need a lot of like fun books, because those
Yeah.
are the books that kids are going to want to pick up and read. Yes, there's a place for the nonfiction. Yes, there's a place for the informational text. But I think the biggest place where kids are going to learn from are the fun, enjoyable stories that, like I said, that they're going to want to pick up and read every night before bed.
Yeah, sure. So you and I met at a book fair about a
Mm-hmm.
month and a half ago, and what
Yeah.
really caught my eye is just seeing the vibrant illustrations in the book. I'm just going to show some pictures here, but I myself read this book to my 5-year-old son, and I showed him the pictures, and it actually, brought out some really interesting questions and discussions. And so,
That's the goal. Yay.
yeah, yeah, I felt really good about it, and I was pleased that this was an opportunity to talk about,
Amazing.
kids, yeah, kids who, and people in general, because especially, I mean, we're both in Israel, and
Mm-hmm.
we see a lot of people, especially over the past couple of years, unfortunately, who may have gotten injured, in the war, or and so we need to be
That
sensitive.
was the inspiration for the character Elon in that book. That
Okay,
he
so
has a
tell I
prosthetic leg. That was literal. That was the inspiration. I was writing book number 2, this book, The Lemonade League. Ugh, sorry, tongue twister. At the start of October 7th, and because I'm a self author, I have to rely on a lot of my own marketing and my own social media. And I was really struggling with it because I live in Israel and we're going through October 7th. And how am I making this about me right now? Like, I can't go on social media and talk about me when October 7th is happening and post October 7th is happening. And I was really, really struggling. And so I said, I need to give this book a purpose. This book needs to come out of the ashes of October 7th. It needs to really just, I need to make it as relatable as possible. So the dedication that's in that book is also related to October 7th. But I was trying to decide the way that I have my book set up is I have the two main characters, the siblings, Triple S and Incredi-Wheels, and then there's always a secondary character. And the secondary character also has a disability. And I was trying to decide what disability to give to him that he should have. And because I was focused on this post October 7th, I was noticing a lot, like what you said, of soldiers with missing limbs or victims of October 7th, that there was a big limb difference now, representation that there wasn't before. And I know that there's been huge strides in Israel in regards to prosthetics and stuff like that. So I'm like, maybe this should be it. This is my sign. This is going to be the disability that's represented, because this is what a lot of kids are probably going to be seeing. And I wanted there to be a book where that's represented in a positive light.
Yeah. So tell me more about that. How do you go about presenting this narrative and these characters in a positive light?
So the main thing that I focus on and that I like to highlight about my books is that there is no actual discussion about disability. You're not going to read the book and learn about wheelchairs. You're not going to learn about prosthetics. You're not going to learn about blindness, which is in my first book. Everything is shown through the illustrations. The story is a fun, engaging story, but anything disability is through the illustrations. So it was incredibly important to me that, one, that the illustrations are accurate. They need to be. I remember when we were hashing through the illustrations for the second book, I had to send a number of corrections back to the illustrator being like, this is a picture of what this is supposed to look like. Please change it or whatever. So the illustrations are accurate. And then two, that the story is engaging, that the illustrations are accurate. And then there's also, I have included with the book, it's all on my website. It's all for free. I have a parent's guide
Oh, now
for
what
parents
is
for
the
both books.
website for anyone who's curious?
Is wheellustratedtales.com. But I have a resource page on my website that includes a parent's guide, a parent's teacher grown-up guide, because the goal of this book is to engage in discussions about disability. And the goal is to get kids asking questions, and parents and grown-ups need to have the tools to answer those questions. Otherwise, it's completely useless.
Yeah.
So I have this guide on my website available for free download. I don't gatekeep, so there's no, you need to put in an email in order to access this. It's literally just a PDF download along with all the other resources. I have other things on my website too, but that I think is one of the most crucial aspects of it, where it kind of answers the questions that I'm predicting children will ask, such as, what is that thing, that wheelchair, or what is that leg, what disability does he have? So that way parents can facilitate these discussions. So the illustrations are completely like that. Like, that's the crux, is that it's all through the illustrations, and that we have the parents guide to help guide the parents through these discussions that should hopefully, or not, or the child can just see the book and read the book and enjoy the book, and that's it. And then it doesn't become a thing. And that's disability inclusion too, believe it or not.
Mm.
So whether they're there to ask questions or not, but so that's how, kind of hoping that works out.
That's excellent. So I just want to take a step back a minute, because you were talking about the illustrations, and
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned that you decided to self-publish. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
ask you more about that in a few minutes, but
Sure.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about your creative process, especially with
Mm-hmm.
regards to the illustrations. How did you go about finding an illustrator? And what was that process like in terms of, you obviously, as you said, you're very closely, personally connected to to this
Hmm.
authentic story. So, what was the process like working with the illustrator that you chose for this book?
So it was very interesting because when I went into this, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Not a
Wow,
clue.
that's so
Not a
brave.
clue. Not a clue. And at first, I was actually planning on working with my cousin, who's my cousin's very artsy. And so she was going to do it. And I was like, oh, yes, it saved me a step of having to figure out how to hire someone because I've never hired anyone in my life before. So I was like, great, this will be like super easy for both of us. And then life circumstances happened and changed. And it ended up that it just didn't work out in the end. And I'm like, okay, now I got to figure this out. And I basically started off on Instagram because where else does anybody look these days? And I found an account called Illustrators for Hire, which is kind of like a database, kind of like Fiverr, but for illustrators. And you can search by style, you can search by illustrator location. There's a whole bunch of like different things that you can do, filters and stuff for what you're looking for. And so I was planning on using that. And it happened to be that the illustrator who I worked with, Bridget, she actually followed me on Instagram. I don't know how, I don't know why, but she did. And I looked at her page and I'm like, oh my God, this is my dream style. Like, if I could have anything, it's this. Like, her colors are so vibrant. The characters are just cute and fun. And like, I'm like, I'm going to reach out to her. So, skip the illustrator for hire. I reached out to her and we got talking. And I remember thinking, like, when we first discussed about a contract, I'm like, what's a contract? What do I do? So I Googled contract. I sent it to her. I'm like, does this work? Is this okay for you? Like, she made her changes for whatever she wanted and done. I'm like, this is the most bizarre thing on the planet, but cool. It worked out really well. She did both of my books. Bridget Malloy, highly recommend if you're looking for an illustrator. Um, the whole thing was, and I joke because it's funny, but it's really, really bizarre because I used the illustrator, I used Bridget, and then I used someone named Travis Peterson to design the book. So Bridget did the illustration, I did the text, and Travis put everything together in the uploadable files and everything. And I also found him through Instagram.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the whole book was done over email because we're
Really?
all in different places, we're all over the world. And it was all done through Instagram and email. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm proud of myself for that. I think that's really a bizarre story.
And how long did this process take?
So the first book took a lot longer than the second book because the first book I was still trying to figure everything out. So the whole thing from start to finish probably took about a year and a half, just because, like I said, I went into this knowing nothing. And then when I wasn't able to work with my cousin as an illustrator, I kind of froze for a couple months. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to. I really was just so scared of doing something like this that I've never done before. So I really froze for a couple months. The whole process, that one took like about a year and a half, and the second one probably about 4 or 5 months.
Hmm.
So it took some time between getting the story banked out, the illustration. There were some editing errors that had to be fixed towards the end that we realized. So yeah, a lot shorter than a year and a half. No.
And was there at any point did you consider going with a mainstream publisher and trying to get an agent, or was
So
there?
I was thinking about it. And then in the end, I was kind of like, I kind of want the control over this. And I know that if I handed it over to a traditional publisher, first of all, like, I don't know, I'm kind of scared of it. Like, I'm scared of handing my baby over to somebody and being like, here you go. I wanted to maintain the control. This whole Wheel of Tales, this whole disability advocacy is me.
Mhm.
I don't have a social media manager. I don't have scheduled posts. I don't have things like that. My goal is authenticity. Everything that comes out on social media, that comes out through my books, is me. It's me, my family. I mean, I try to keep my kids out of things as much as possible because I like to maintain their privacy. Um, but I live for the authenticity. I felt like handing it over to someone else would kind of be like tearing at my heart and just being like, here you go, do well by it. So, I mean, in theory, in the future, would I like to? Maybe for something. I actually have other projects in mind that I'm thinking of, and that would be a different story. but I don't know. I'm a very controlling person, so I like having the control. I don't like
Yeah.
that I have to work and work and work and work and all the marketing and all the things that go along with self-publishing.
It's
It's a lot of work.
There are pros
It's
and
really a
cons
lot of
to
work.
both
Exactly.
sides.
Exactly. But in the end, I'm like, I like my control. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep it.
But what I find fascinating about your series in particular is that when I first heard about you, this is somebody had told me about you, had mentioned your name to me a couple of years ago. And so I went in and I Googled you,
Yeah.
and I actually saw that your book was picked up by major distributors. I saw your
Yeah,
book
it's pretty
had been
cool.
picked up in Barnes and Noble and Walmart and
Mhm.
Target. So for a
Yeah.
self-published author, I want you to know that that
Thank
is
you.
so
Yeah.
rare.
It
It's
was
such a
very,
huge
it was,
achievement.
I remember seeing that also. It was very funny because I gave a speech to a sixth grade English class in Modier. And they were like, "Have you ever Googled yourself?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Do it." So I said, "Okay, let's Google myself in front of a bunch of sixth grade girls. Let's." And like the book showed up in like all these random places, and in China and Japan, and like I don't know, like I had to Google what these country codes were on the website, and like you said, Barnes and Noble and Target. I'm like, I don't know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Did you
I'll take
use
it.
a particular service that
Yeah.
got the book out there? Tell us
So
about
I
that.
used so for the way that it works is a lot of people do who do I did print on demand. That was the system that I used for publishing this. There is you can do offset printing where you just print a bunch of books. You have to the problem with that is that you have to put a lot of money up front because you have to like minimum bulk order like between 250 and 500 copies. So you have to be able to front the funds for that. And then you have to be able to store those and you have to be able to ship them. Now from Israel, the shipping will cost more than the book. And so I'm like, that also was a big part of my setback in the beginning was trying to figure out how to do this. And then I had taken a Zoom class from SCBWI, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry if I got that wrong. It's the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I like joined their group when I was first starting. I don't think I've renewed my membership, sorry. But I had taken a Zoom workshop through them with a self-published author, and she had mentioned print on demand. I'm like, oh, let's take a look at that. And so basically the way that it works is there's a couple different companies that where you basically upload your files and people order it and they print it out and ship it. And obviously they take a percentage cut from you don't get the full payment. So I used Amazon KDP printing and I used what's called Ingram Spark.
Mhm.
Because KDP, they don't print in hardcover for books under 75 pages. So children's books are under 75 pages. So they don't do hardcover. And I really wanted the hardcover because I'm like, if I'm doing this, then I want a hardcover. I love my books. I need something that's going to last and not something that's going to rip in like 5 seconds because my kids are handling it or I'm handling it or whatever. So, so I did both of those. And those, I think there's a whole lot of different like settings that you have to click global distribution, not global distribution. There's like a formula like you have to don't click it on Amazon, click it on Ingram, publish through Amazon first, publish through Ingram second. There's a whole formula for how to get it done and how to get it out there. But those were the two services, and then basically it ends up that Ingram Spark and Amazon get them both on different websites and different digital marketplaces. So places like Barnes and Noble, but like I don't know if you can get them in stores. You might be able to go into the store and request that they order it. It's not in the actual store, but if it's on their website, usually they can order it to a store. So
Yeah, if it's
that's
in
as
their
close as we're gonna
system, then
get.
they're able to order it to the store if
Yeah.
anyone wants it.
So
That's
that's like
great.
as close as we can get, but I'll take it. I'm
Yeah, and
picky.
that really shows that there really is a universal need for and demand for a book
Yeah.
of this nature, which is really
Yeah.
interesting to me because,
Yeah.
we live in a world that's all about, inclusion and diversity. And you would think
Mhm.
that there would already be other books like this out there, but it really shows that
Yeah.
there's a market out there.
I have to say I'm really grateful. I work with a really great cohort of self-published authors who are working on this. I actually am also on the board of an organization called Disability Book Week,
Mm.
where it's this last week in April, I believe, and where we have like a big effort to get disability inclusive books in schools and libraries to really push it. And we've been working now throughout the year to kind of get that going past just the week. And so a lot of these authors have been putting out some really good books. There are a lot of self-published authors like myself who are working their behinds off, really trying to really get these disability inclusive books out, because the truth is traditional publishing doesn't see a lot of it. Like I said, it's getting better. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, especially in the traditional publishing. So we have a nice group of self-published authors who are trying to fill that gap.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about the content in the
Mm-hmm.
book,
Sure.
because I noticed that you focus on, at least in the Lemonade League, that there's a lot of community service
Mm-hmm.
and doing good for others. You know, what we in the Jewish world, you know, would call Chesed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, giving tzedakah, giving charity. And I'm just wondering, you know, where that plays into it. You know, how did
Sure.
you decide to focus on that?
So the first aspect of that I really wanted to focus on was that people with disabilities could be helpers also. There's a lot of what I noticed of what there is disability inclusion in books and in advertisements and stuff is that the kids and the adults with disabilities are always being pitied and are always like the subject of receiving, and they're always on the receiving end of chesed, they're always on the receiving end of charity, and I'm like, but they can do it too. Like they can be helpers too. And I'm like, I know that I'm raising my son and I'm raising him. I want him to be a contributing member of society. And that includes doing chesed for others. And that for me was that was one of the biggest parts, was that just people with disabilities can be helpers too. And that they're not always on the receiving end, and they can be on the giving end. And I, and then along with that, I kind of want, even like I said, that my book is about, it's fun and it's enjoyable, but I also wanted kids to get something out of it, because I know that that's where kids learn lessons as they grow up, is from their books. So I was trying to think of how to do that, because it's tricky and it's really hard. And I was thinking back to myself, like my own childhood. How did I learn how did I learn about different acts of chesed? I'll be totally honest, it was Uncle Mike. I don't know how much. I don't remember like sitting and I mean, I do remember sitting and watching it, but the songs are just like, when I think
Uncle
about
Maishi and the Mitzvah
Hashava
Men.
Zaveda, this is what it means. Like, still in my head today is like, that's how I remember as a kid learning about mitzvot.
In other
And so
words, it was through songs, it was
through
through
songs, it
fun
was through
engagement.
books, through games, through active engagement. Exactly. I don't remember being in school and listening to the teachers talk about different things. Like, I remember it being what you get at home, what's in your environment. Like I said, the music, the TV shows, the books, like I said, the active engagement. So obviously I'm not putting out a musical album. That's not happening. But books. Okay, so
Never say
let's do
never.
it. Don't hear me sing. And then we'll say never. Don't say that. So, but I'm like, okay, so these books, they have to be fun, they have to be enjoyable, and they have to teach kids a lesson. Like, there needs to be a moral of the story. Whether it doesn't need to be like an Aesop's fables kind of thing where like you learn a direct lesson at the end, but I want there to be positive messages. I want kids to come out of this reading experience learning and growing, whether that's through disability inclusion, whether that's through tzedakah, charity, chesed. Like, there needs to be something positive that comes out of this also, other than just the pure enjoyment, which I hope they get to. So yeah, so each book is geared towards a different mitzvah. So the first book is Hashavat, returning a lost object, which is returning the missing book from the park. And this one is tzedakah. And I think what is actually really interesting between the two books, so the first book is geared towards a younger audience, and this book is geared to a slightly older audience. So this one's more for kids ages 5 to 9, sorry, kids 5 to 9. And I wanted to focus on a mitzvah that had a bit more intricacy, because the text and the discussion levels in this book are slightly higher than what's in the first book. And I'm like, this is kind of I happen to love it better, because I love the slightly more intricate storyline than the first one, even though the first one was the first one. But like being able to talk about charity, like there's a discussion between Nina and their mother, like what is charity, what is a donation, and how they go around and include the community and everyone becomes a part of it. I'm like, this is such a feel good book. It's such a nice story that like everyone comes together to do something. And I focused on an animal shelter because I have my own love of animals. My dream is to adopt an animal. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it's also something that's a little bit more tangible for kids and something that's a little bit more relatable on their level. So that was how we got into that direction.
That's wonderful. I think that, by focusing on these, good deeds and showing that all of the kids are working on it together really does show
Mm-hmm.
that, that you shouldn't, assume that somebody is not able to
Mm-hmm.
participate or, partner with you on particular
Yeah.
projects. And it's just great. So important.
Thank you. Yeah. I
Were
love it.
there any challenges that you've encountered throughout your process, either producing the book or afterwards?
Well, definitely not knowing what I was doing was kind of a big that was a big one. The second book there were a number of editorial issues that were discovered like post production and I was like, oh, okay, now we have to pull the book from the shelf and now we have to issue refunds and now we have to like send out books and it was like a whole I was like pushing it was a little bit of a I was pushing to get it out slash I wasn't paying attention slash I had a whole bunch of readers read it and different things just didn't get caught and I was like okay next time I'm budgeting an editor I got it like it was that was annoying the first book I'll be honest I don't other than the fact that it took forever I kind of pushed out any potential mistakes out of my memory so I don't really remember the first one but the second one like it was a little bit stressful at the end but thank god in the end it came out great but it was like I put it out there and I'm like oh shoot I have to pull it back and now we put it out and then we pull it back and then we put it back out okay now we're happy now we're happy
So were you able to go back to that online system and take
so
down the
one of the good
file?
things about it is you can pull files and you
Yeah.
can make changes and stuff like that it's just more of a matter of if someone had bought it in between then I had to like resend them the fixed version or make sure that they got the corrected Kindle version or whatever. Thankfully, it worked out. And I'm like, I guess one of the good things about being self published that I'm not so popular is that I didn't have so many people buying it that I had to like rectify this massive situation and mail out like hundreds of books. But, you know, I'll take what I can get. It was good. It was very hectic. But and then it was funny because I spoke about it on Instagram, which I'm not like I said, I'm very authentic. So I'm like, I made this big fat mistake. Like, don't do it. And so many people who I work with were like, oh, I did the same thing. The same thing happened to me. The same thing. I'm like, I wish I knew that because then I would feel a little bit more like okay with the fact that I just made this ginormous mistake.
Yeah, this is
I was
it
like, no, it happens to me too. It happens to me too. I'm like, oh, good
comes
to
with the
know. Cool.
process. You live
Cool.
and learn.
Yeah. And it's like I also didn't feel so alone. Like it's not just me. I'm not the only
No,
one who
it's
makes
not just
ginormous.
you.
Cool.
So, are you working on any new books?
So currently not. I really want to. Really, what I want to do now is I really want to do a board book for like younger kids because that's the population that I'm working with now. I'm teaching preschool, and I'm like, we need more of these. But print on demand with board books is not a thing, and I'm like, that's a big production to figure out board books. And and someone gave me an idea like to spin off like off of the Incredi-Wheels a little bit, and I'm like, maybe not, but I really what I want to do is a board book for younger readers. That's like what I would love to do next. Not sure if and when, but that's my dream right now for that.
Okay. What would that look
Yeah.
like? Like
I
you
don't
talked about that there
know.
are these resources that you have on your website for educators and parents. So
Mm-hmm.
what would a workbook look like?
Board book. Sorry, did I say workbook? I meant board book, like for babies.
Oh, a board
A
book.
board book.
Oh, that's
A
wonderful.
board book. Yeah. That's really
Very,
what I want to do.
oh,
So
that's
like for
great.
younger, but that's tricky. And
Yeah.
like I said, with the print on demand and like that's a big invest. That's a big because there are no print on demands for board book. That's not a thing, or at
There
least
might
not to my
be.
knowledge. If anybody happens to know, send them my way. But
There might be.
but
So
So
as we wrap up here, I'm curious. First of all, I feel like this is really a success story. um, there are so many people who I speak with, doing my in my work as a book publicist, and people come to me at all stages of, their publishing journey, and many of them are considering self-publishing, but it's, as you said, it's a tremendous amount of work, and you
mhm,
need to be really, dedicated and focused. And so I really see, your two books as being a success story, especially with the
yeah.
distribution in these mainstream stores. And I'm wondering, if you have any advice that you would give to all these
Mhm,
people out there who are aspiring authors, and especially in the, in the kidlit world, for
mhm.
people who are looking to publish children's books. What advice do you have to them?
I would just say just to do your research, and like you can do it. You can. It's so that the thing is, I don't think people realize how doable it really is. And I mean, I was that person also. Like I said, this took me a long time. The whole process was a lot to figure out, and I wouldn't have figured. I mean, I probably would have come across the whole print on demand situation at some point, but I was at a point where I was just a few times where I was just completely frozen. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to go about it. And then in the end, there's a lot of research that needs to be done, whether it's finding an illustrator, it's finding, if you want to do a print, like an offset printing, raising money. A lot of people do like Kickstarters and GoFundMe's and things like that, fundraisers. But there's a lot of different options out there. It's more just finding what works best for you. If you're someone who's like, I want to be the big five publishing house, like I want to be Simon & Schuster, I want to be a Penguin, like then you need an agent and you need to look, you need to do research. Like there's a lot of research that needs to be done, but it's doable. So I think that's probably helpful to know that like it's not something that's completely unattainable, that it can be done, you can do it, anyone can do it. You have to just research what you're, whether you know how to know, like whether you know about files, how to format files. Okay, if you don't,
Yeah.
find someone to do that. If you can't illustrate your own book, find someone to do that. If you need an editor, find, like there's all these people out there. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. So
Definitely. There are so
I
many
hope that's
online
helpful.
communities and, support, and
Yeah.
a lot of collaboration. So I agree
Yeah.
with you on that.
And like I said, everyone I found from my team was social media. So and personally, I dislike social media to no end. And I part of the reason why I stalled on this was because I'm like, I have to go on social media, and I don't want to go on social media, and I don't want to do it. And it ended up that everything was through social media. So, you never know what's going to happen through
Yeah.
connections and through contacts and following someone on Instagram. Who knows?
Yeah. And so my last question to you is, how does your son feel about being the subject of these children's books?
He loves it.
He's
He's
the
like, Ema, you made me
superhero.
famous. He's so funny. He loves it. He actually helped me write the second book, believe it or not. We brainstormed it together because I started the books when he was 4, and now he's 10. So he helped me brainstorm for book number 2. We came up with that one together. So he loved being a part of that process with me. But he's very funny. He's like, Ema, you made me famous. And it was great because, like, the people in shul, because we also had just switched shuls around the time when it came out. And so a lot of people, our community is amazing. A lot of people everyone's very supportive of us and my son. And next level, I have to say, is just fantastic. But a lot of families in our community have our books, and they always go, oh, that's the kid from the book, or and it's like, and it gives him such a sense of pride as opposed to like, who is that kid? Like,
Yeah.
don't talk to him. So I'm like,
And it
I'm,
probably
I'm
works
happy that he's happy.
the other way too, that the kids are like, I know that kid. I know that kid from the book.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just, like I said, like my goal at first was just to keep it communal and just to keep it small. And I'm happy to see that that goal has been like surpassed. And I just kind of hope that that helps other kids also in other places and other communities. And it's also out in Hebrew.
Oh,
So
it's in Hebrew as well?
it's in Hebrew too, but that I got pushed for it to be translated because we're in Israel and it should be in Hebrew too. And there's huge, if there's a lack of books in English, there's like 10 times more of a lack of books in Hebrew.
Hmm.
So I was pushed to translate it. And so it's in Hebrew. It's available in Hebrew also. And that was a nice, like, because it made its way a little bit into the Israeli community too. And like, It's good. It's good.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
Rebecca, thank you so much for talking with me about your books.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really enjoyed it, and I just wish you continued success. And I hope
Thank
that
you.
Wheellustrated Tales continues in its mission
Thank
to
you.
empower
Well,
kids
thank
and
you so
empower.
much for having me here. And I hope that whoever sees this feels that it's something that they can use with their family, their kids, their students, their waiting rooms. I've gotten messages from people who found my book in a hospital waiting room. So, there's places for it to go.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. So everyone check out Rebecca Seligson's book, The Lemonade League and the Adventures of Incredi-Wheels and Triple S. So thanks so much, and we'll be
Thank
in
you
touch.
so much. Yes, absolutely.